like everybody always says, "Well, how did you buy a football team?" So you could have. I just went out and I did it. I think there's a lot of people out there that when they're confronted with something that hasn't been done before, just assume that it can't be done. It's not easy. You have to be ultimately also comfortable with being a leader and being judged by the possibility of failure. The idea is to take this amazing, historic, fantastic club, strengthen its brand, and make it the place where people go to experience community. I failed on like a major level, right? I mean, I ran for mayor. I asked everyone I knew to give me money, and I finished 4th out of 4. But it is what it is, and you have to decide to be willing to get back up after a failure like that, and go out and ask people to support you again. That can be challenging. Spent 15 years in government. And we both came into office just weeks after September 11th. So it was a massive challenge and crisis. Built about 2,000 units of about $1 billion worth of affordable housing. For the rest of my life, I can walk on the Highland and think, I was part of making this happen.
Well, welcome to the Red Chair. Today we have Gifford Miller. Gifford,
Thanks.
great to see you here at Indico. You're an entrepreneur, real estate entrepreneur, but you're also the president of Atlético City, Clube de Portugal, so not Atlético Madrid.
Yeah, no, that would be a whole different, that'd be a different podcast.
You ran for mayor in New York.
Yeah.
You have such a rich history, but now you're living in Lisbon. Tell us your story. Where did you come from?
Well, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in a family that was very focused on public service. So when I left college, I spent 15 years in government. I was really fortunate. I had a lot of good fortune and a lot of support. I ended up spend most of my time was in New York City working in local government. I finished up with 4 years as the speaker of the Camera, the city council there. Ran for mayor, lost terribly, which was great for me. I lost in a primary. I was the speaker during the first Michael Bloomberg term.
Right.
So I worked closely and occasionally at odds with Mike, but we got a lot done. It was a difficult time. He's a great entrepreneur, and we both came into office just weeks after September 11th.
Right.
So it was a massive challenge and crisis for the city.
I was there. I was in Boston.
Yeah, it was amazing that the city was able to rebound in the way that it did. It's an incredible testament to a great city. And so when I lost my race for mayor, I decided I wanted to start my own business building affordable housing, which I did, and spent the next 15 years doing that. Built about 2,000 units of about $1 billion worth of affordable housing all in the Bronx in New York City. And then 4.5 years ago, came here on a short vacation with my wife, fell in love. We both just successfully sent our kids to college because it was in the pandemic. So the previous year, we unsuccessfully sent our kids to college and they came home. That year they were staying and we were like, I don't know whether we were drunk with the excitement of that, but we just bought an apartment and have been loving being here as much as we can ever since.
So did you always program to be a politician at the beginning because of the public service aspect? What did you study? I mean,
I studied political science, and I think it was what I was interested in. In my family, my father served in the Kennedy administrations and the Johnson administrations. My mother is actually America's greatest gardener. She does only public gardens and she transformed New York City. If you see a flower in New York City, my mother put it there.
Amazing.
And so it was sort of natural for me. And particularly, I worked in Congress for a little bit, but I found that you can make more impact on a local level and that you feel you're so for example, I was very fortunate to be one of the founders of the Highline. And I think most people know the Highline amazing. Transformation. My roommate from college was the guy who founded the idea, that came up with the idea, and I happened to be in government at the right time in the right place. And so for the rest of my life, I can walk on the Highline and think, I was part of making this happen. That's harder to do at the federal level, but in the local level, you can make a difference. Same thing interested me in affordable housing, because
how was that jump? Because sometimes you get entrepreneurs that become politicians, right? But to be a politician and become an entrepreneur, maybe less frequent.
I think it is less frequent. I find most politicians try to stay too long. And that wasn't my problem. I was happy it was amazing run. But I think that it was being a developer is actually somewhat similar to being, this is going to sound a little strange, but to being the speaker of the legislature. Because the whole idea behind being a developer, and I think this is true for entrepreneurs, is you have to get other people who aren't necessarily in your control to believe in your vision and to do things that you're explaining them why it's in their self-interest that's in your interest. And being a real estate developer is a lot like that. You have so many different balls up in the air. You have to be much of a generalist. So I'm not an engineer. I never actually built any of the things, but what I is a generalist who has to figure out how to create a unity around a vision and drive a complicated project. And so it's kind of politics and particular affordable housing because of the involvement of government in terms of making it work from a financial way. It was, for me, it was a place where my experience had value in the private sector.
So isn't it the case that, every entrepreneur normally finds a problem to a solution they know very well? Did you find that problem when you were in politics?
I did, actually. Some ways I sort of created it. Because actually what happened is that we decided, the Bloomberg administration and we worked together because people were speculating in industrial areas in New York City, and you needed industrial space. So people were buying up industrial spaces, not using them for industrial purposes, and then coming to the council and to the mayor to say, please, let's rezone this so we can do non-industrial work. And so we put through a whole process.
Probably offices or very expensive.
Yeah, it was offices, or it was mostly residential at that time. That was the value there. It's funny now because actually with the whole incredible explosion of last mile transportation and logistics, all of those spaces are worth more now as industrial than they were at the rezone. But no one knew that then, and so we did a rezoning, a full rezoning. The sort said, these are the industrial areas that we're never going to change. But when I left office, I was like, well, we didn't rezone all these other ones. So we're sort of saying those can change. So basically what I did was I started a fund, raised a bunch of money, bought a bunch of properties in those failed industrial areas, and then went to the city, rezoned them, and ultimately built 2,000 units of affordable housing. So there was sort of this, and this is actually what interests me in some ways the most about, this sounds funny, but in some ways the thing that interests me the most about Atletico is the sort of that urban planning kind of challenge of taking a space like the Tapadinha, which is our amazing stadium. For people who know Lisbon well, it's the one that is right at the end of the
bridge,
Pont d'Abril, and you can't miss. But people have stopped seeing for the last 50 years because nothing much was happening there. And so taking that unbelievable urban asset,
incredible
in terms of location, but understanding that football stadiums are a big problem from an urban planning point of view because they get used twice a month. And so how do we...
They do, it's chaotic normally.
Exactly. And so so the challenge for me, I think, in our goal for Atletico is to turn Atletico into kind of like a place that everybody comes, not just on game days, but around the week, around the month, and around the year, as a place where you're going to get to experience everything that there is to be about being Lisbon. So first of all, football, everybody loves football. We understand we're never going to get a Benfica or a Sporting fan to leave Benfica and Sporting, but you can be both a Benfica and a Sporting fan, and we can be your local. We're your local team. But also, we are working. We'll have hopefully some more public announcements coming up. But we're working to integrate art into the stadium at every level, so that it's going to become more of a cultural experience. We built this not enormous, but 2,000 square meter hospitality space with food trucks and a big screen TV that's not open just for the game day, but can be open all week long and host private events, public spaces, music, all the like. The idea is to take this amazing, historic, fantastic club, strengthen its brand, and make it the place where people, whether you've been here for 70 years living in Alcântara, or whether you just arrived 5 years ago from, Denmark, it's where you go to experience community and to find a place to express your Lisbonness.
So how did you, so you arrived to Lisbon with your wife, you buy an apartment.
Yeah.
You've exited your business in the US, I suppose?
No. I still managed it.
I still managed it.
Yeah.
Right. So, but things are going well. And then how did this thing came up to buy a football club, a third division football club in the heart of the city?
Well, I lived in London for a couple of years when I was a little boy, so I had sort of an early adoption on football, which the United States has been experiencing, more and more. But I was there first, as it were.
Right.
And I'm a massive Liverpool fan. My dogs are named after Liverpool managers. My kids call me every day to talk about
the bad ones.
The good ones. The good ones. That's an interesting idea. If I had cats, I'd name them after the bad ones, maybe. It was. I think, and you asked. So I think you were asking me whether I had any advice on entrepreneurs. And my advice to entrepreneurs is the same advice that I give to most people, which is that if you want to do something, there's only one way to do it, and that's to go do it. And I was here, and I looked around, and my wife and I, we used to walk around. We still do. We love to walk, and normally you walk down the water, or you could walk up into Monsanto, and we'd walk by the Tapadinha. And I said to myself, well, if I don't buy a football team soon, they'll get too expensive, and I won't be able to buy a football team. So I better just do it now.
You wanted to buy a football team?
Not when I came here. No. It just sort of, what actually happened was I started a golden visa fund to invest in real estate development. And then the government canceled all aspects of the real estate for the golden, which doesn't make any sense. You should allow golden visa for real estate development. I understand it makes no sense also to let people buy apartments and get golden visa support, but there's not enough equity in this country to do all the real estate development that's needed. But anyway, it's the decision. I'm from government. I understand government makes bad decisions. And so then I thought, oh, well, I still am looking for ways to spend here. I do some investment in real estate directly, and I've invested in a independent hotel chain. But I thought, well, I would really love to own a football team. So I just went out there looking. It just happened that this team that's a 10-minute walk from my home that I've been walking by with, for me, the most romantic place to watch a football game in the world, was looking for an investor, and life comes together when you make it.
So you get in with another 100+ investors, right?
Yeah.
Like a fund almost.
It is a fund, yes.
And you have a bit of a startup with a legacy, with a great legacy and a great name and an incredible location. And so what are the challenges of someone that, picks up that sort of legacy and has an entrepreneur? What was the plan?
Well, I think, so as you say, first of all, the first challenge is to recognize the asset that's there, and to find a way to be respectful of it. So, Atletico, was until the 1960s, one of the biggest teams in the country. It's well known across the board. And what happened to it, of course, is the bridge. When they started the bridge in Alcantara, Atletico had 15,000 paying socios. When they finished the bridge, it had 2,000 paying socios, and it has gone down from there. But Alcantara is experiencing a bit of a renaissance right now. There's more museums, restaurants, El Shish. There's a lot going on. So to build on that and to build on Atletico's brand, but while being respectful of it, of the history. So I think for somebody who's an outsider, especially in football, you need to recognize that you are not the owner in the sense that you can just do whatever you want. You're more of like a caretaker of something that is incredibly important to the community. And then, but the other challenge was there was very little there. I mean, this is a club that it was not, the reason they were selling is because they didn't have any assets. So there was no scouting team, there was no medical team, there was only volunteers who were working. There was basically no professional staff whatsoever other than the coach. And so for somebody who is from outside of Portugal to start up like five different businesses all at the same time in another language is a big challenge. And I was very fortunate to arrive in the project with a couple of really amazing and hardworking and creative young Portuguese people with experience. Not too much experience, but a love for the project.
More experience than you.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. You couldn't have less experience. Impossible.
And so what were the first things you created? sort of the new
Yeah,
club
it's been
jersey? I mean, what
we
did you
did bring in a new jersey. Our first new jersey was rated by ESPN the second coolest jersey in the world. And I mean, I have no in at ESPN. It just happened. It was amazing.
how did they find about it?
We put it out, and there are entire social media sites that are devoted to nothing but football jerseys.
Interesting.
And somebody saw our camisola and was like, wow. And then somebody else was like, wow. It was literally just a viral thing. We had 2 million hits on our shirts, and we were selling shirts to Australia and, Denmark and Germany and all over.
More than in Portugal, for sure.
Almost, yeah. Almost, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it was really, it was one of those things where we're trying to do everything all at once, and it's not easy. So certainly build up the team, add a nutrition, start serving the, I mean, everything from serving them breakfast, players through breakfast, to getting them, better, medical support, and putting in place a scouting team so we can, use data. We have a data analyst, to analyze our players. So we're really up and down the place, trying to bring a full professional model to a Liga 3 team.
Which year was this?
What happened is that Atletico had a previous experience with a private investor that was bad. About that 9 years ago or 8 years ago, they sold, let's say, in the same thing to a Chinese investor who turned out to be a match fixer. And so they had to lock him out and go back to the 8th division, the very bottom. And they'd been building their way up. And so they were a little, understandably, kind of, reluctant to just turn over the keys. So we spent the first year co-managing at our own risk, and paying for the losses, with the club. And we closed the acquisition in June of 2024.
2024. So
Yeah.
it's been a year and a half or so.
It's been almost 2.5 because we had that first year together. I've been there, but only a little under 2 years as the sole investor or owner.
And so how is the club doing?
I'll let you know after this weekend. I mean, I think in general, great. We have a good team. We're building stronger support. People are recognizing the excellence of our merchandise. They're coming, they're enjoying themselves. We're starting to see Sporting and Benfica fans, you can go with your friend who supports the other team and enjoy it. So I think on all of those levels, things are going really well. Right now we're in 5th place, and we need to be in 4th place to progress to the positive side of the next round. And there's 2 games to go, so let's see. But overall, I think it's been highly positive, a lot of progress, and confident that we're gonna get to where we want to be, which is to be everybody's favorite Lisbon team, team that delivers amazing football to people that love to watch it, and to come more than just for football, but to come and enjoy an amazing Lisbon experience at the top of the
So
league.
you think it's a real estate thing, or is it more of a sports? I mean, as an entrepreneur, you think the future lies more in the real estate aspect or more on the entertainment and sports? Where's more upside?
I think the upside is in using I wouldn't describe it as a real estate play in like a sort of classic real estate play, because it's not like we're not buying low and selling high, and we're not building, but to use the location and the brand of this amazing historic team. I mean, this is a team that comes from 2 older teams, Unia Lisboa and Carcavelinhos. Carcavelinhos won the national championship in 1927. So we're only 2 years away from celebrating the 100th anniversary of being the national champions in Portugal. But I think that's the upside is in using this amazing location, not just the location, but the stadium, which needs absolutely work, and we're working on it. Mm-hmm. Is a amazing sort of window into the past. When you go to the Tapadinha, it doesn't feel like anything other than a 1940s Portuguese stadium. And the views of the river and the bridge, you feel like you are like going back into the past a little bit. And so trying to embrace that at the same time as trying to sort of be modern about how we create entertainment, not just for games, but throughout the season. And to connect with art. Yeah. So basically creating a whole community of people that feel invested and part of Atletico. My dream is that someday, when you walk down the street, if you want to tell everybody that you're from Lisbon, you'll be wearing an Atletico shirt and or Atletico jacket. That's it. And that's where we want to get, that we're going to sort of be that much in it. And it's funny to be an American on the outside. I'm saying that, but I came here because I love Lisbon. There's a lot of people who stay here because they love Lisbon or come here because they love Lisbon. Atletico is where they got to be.
And so in terms of entrepreneurship, what are the sort of commonalities between what you did in the past or your business in New York and launching,
I think
relaunching a football club?
It's the same set of challenges, which really are around finding ways to get diverse people to buy into your vision and to work towards in the direction that you want to, and this is sometimes this is a country where you have to be patient around certain kinds of stuff, which is not necessarily my, you have a lot of process.
Difficult for Americans.
It's not all of my strength. I'm a New Yorker, but I love that, I think, I love New York. But it's a very intense,
sometimes
frenetic.
Intense.
Yeah, exactly. And you come here, and sometimes it's a little too not intense.
Exactly.
We could use a little more in between. So maybe I'm trying to find that right point for everybody. But I think that the commonality is in being a bit fearless, in plunging into spaces that you don't necessarily know, well, but finding the right people who can advise you on how to move forward, and then keeping all of it, all the balls in the air, because, I think all entrepreneurship is really a matter of juggling, and you have all these different balls and you got to decide which ones are, to throw high.
Priority.
Yeah.
And on the opposite perspective, what are the sort of the common mistakes you've seen in business, in politics, from an entrepreneurial point of view? I mean, politicians in a way are also their own entrepreneurs, right? They're propelling their own brand, in a sense, right? And so what are the mistakes that you'd find common from someone like you that been in politics and then, real estate and now a football club? It all seems very different, but ultimately common positive things and negative.
No, I think the first mistake is the flip side of my sort of advice, which is that I think there's a lot of people out there that when they're confronted with something that hasn't been done before, just assume that it can't be done. And a lot of negativity around the idea of newness and new ideas. And so I think people can allow themselves to put themselves into boxes and just say, well, that's not how things are done, so we're not going to do it. And so I think it's really just everything flows from.
It's an attitude thing.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I think our superpower, with my staff, is that just because people haven't done it does not mean that we're not going to entertain it. No, sometimes there's really good reasons not to do it, but you need to think it through and not just accept it. And I think it's like everybody always says, "Well, how did you buy a football team?" So you could have, it's not like I just went out and I did it, and
you got in touch with people.
I started calling people. I got to raise the money. First, you got to raise the money. You got to get people excited. You got to say, this is where we're going to go, and then convince people you're going to get there. Anybody can do it. It's just, you have to decide to do it. And I think an enormous amount of people are just not comfortable with that. And then the other thing is, there is the flip side. I mean, it's not easy. There's definitely many nights where I lie in bed in Strela, and I look up at the scene and I think, what have I done? Why am I not with my wife in New York? And why am I here? And how did we manage to lose to Santarém? So I think, you have to be ultimately also comfortable with being a leader and being judged by the possibility of failure. And
it's an entrepreneurial thing.
It is. I failed.
A political thing in a way.
Yeah, well, in a way, it actually was great. I failed on like a major level, right? I mean, I ran for mayor. I asked everyone I knew to give me money, and I finished fourth out of four in a Democratic primary. And there were a bunch of reasons why that happened, some of which were my fault and some of which weren't.
But it is what it is.
But it is what it is, and you have to decide to be willing to get back up after a failure like that, and go out and ask people to support you again, and that can be challenging.
Do you find that there's a very big difference between the attitude in the US and here in terms of failure? How failure is perceived? Or you haven't
No,
seen
I
it
don't.
yet?
I don't think so. I think it's. I mean, I think there's more appetite for risk in the United States. It's just a more. It's part of the ethos, particularly of business.
Would you credit that to be one of the main forces behind the US sort of global dominance in a way, economically, I'm speaking,
I would. I mean, I
in
think
addition to being a large country and so on and so forth?
I think there's a lot, but I think that's a big part of it. And I think for this country, which was a country that did not value entrepreneurship, did not value, thinking outside the box for decades and decades and decades in the past. And so you see these enormous Portuguese communities all across the world where people who were ambitious left. But I think you're seeing a huge change in that. And so I think
You certainly see it in tech, right?
yeah, you see it in tech, and honestly, to some extent, you see it in football.
Yes, for sure.
I'm super, fortunate to have two relatively young Portuguese leading both our football and our non-football activities, and both of them are creative, outside of the box thinkers who want to try new things, who want to do stuff, and who are here. And I think 30 years ago they would be somewhere else.
Right. And I mean, the football industry and coaching in Portugal is super advanced, right?
It's amazing, but it's also can be pretty
Closed in a way.
yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of this is what we do, and so we're going to keep doing it because that's what we do, and that creates opportunity.
Yes, for sure. Gifford, great to see you.
Yeah,
Great
such a
Indico.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing
I
your
hope
story.
you'll come on down to the top of Dina soon, and I hope all of you will too.
Yes, absolutely. Great story. And hope everything goes well.
Thank
Hope
you.
you enjoyed this episode of The Red Chair.